come home. And you're like, okay, 5 minutes. And then they call your friend's house again, and they're like, come home. And you're like, okay, 5 minutes, right? And then they call a third time. And there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And he preaches, and he finishes, and he starts something new, and he finishes, and the people are accumulating. The people aren't leaving, they're coming. You know, when I say glory be to God forever and ever, man, it's like, where's my coffee, where's my sandwich, everybody's out of here, right? No, the flow of traffic is the other way. People are coming, and he finishes the sermon, and more people come, so he preaches anew, and more people come, and he preaches anew. Finally, it's starting to get dark. These people have been with him now, so you know, for the whole day, some of them for several days, some of them followed him from the cities and towns in Galilee. And he says, his disciples come up to him and they're like, Master, these people still got to get home. It's getting dark. There's no supplies, there's no provisions along the way. Send them home so they can go and get something to eat. Jesus is you and me sitting playing a video game with his friend, and the disciples are the parents interrupting the good time, saying, Master, it's getting dark, time. They're going to faint along the way. There's nothing for them to eat and so on. They still have to walk, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to get home, right? The danger of thieves and wild animals and anything along the way. Master, come on, wrap it up, Send them away so that they can go home and get home safely. Jesus turns to his disciples, like you and me, turning to our parents. No, give me 5 more minutes. Give me 5 more minutes. He says, you give them something to eat. And a new perspective on the feeding, they give him 5 loaves of fish, he blesses them, feeds 5,000 people. I want to tell you, if you think this is impossible, I have seen it with my own 2 eyes. I have seen it with my own 2 eyes. In the mission, with peanut butter and jam sandwiches, literally we have enough for 200 kids, and we get thousands. And the sandwiches don't finish. The sandwiches don't end. And you're looking at the table, and there's like a full table of sandwiches, and you're handing them out faster than you can grab, And you look at the table, it's still full, until the last kid has got one. That's happened to us multiple times in Africa. And multiple other things, other stories where we've seen the multiplication of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Our Master is alive and he's continuing to do it. But that's not the best part. The best part isn't that he can make lunch for probably 10, 12, 15,000 people out of a lunchbox. Out of one lunchbox, he can feed a town. That's not the best news. The best news is that when his disciples tell him, send them away, he says, no, not yet. 5 more. Okay, well, let's just share a meal together. Let's just share a meal together. When Jesus realizes that this is the last meal he's going to share with his disciples, the Last Supper, Jesus says something that's so powerful. It's so powerful. Jesus says, when the hour had come, he sat down with the 12 apostles, and he said to them, with fervent desire, I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. With fervent desire, I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. With fervent desire. The word fervent desire in English is 2 words, but in Greek, it's only 1 word. But it's 1 word, epithemeo, which could be translated to have desire for a thing, to long for a thing, to lust for a thing. Like the word that's used for lust and otherwise in Scripture is epithemeo, to covet, to set your heart upon. Jesus was waiting for this moment. Jesus was waiting for this moment. ever experienced the fire, the burning fire of lust. When you've got someone in your head, something in your head, and you can't get it out. And try as you may to turn your mind or your attention towards something else, you can't. Your whole mind is fixed on one thing, one person. That's Jesus' disposition. There's no stronger word for desire in the New Testament. There's no stronger word. So in English, if they were to translate it to desire, it's not so pathetic. So they have to add an adjective with fervent desire to give meaning to the literal translation. But the word with fervent desire, I have desire to eat this Passover before I suffer. The word is in both is desire, like both of them are epitheneo, right? But to give the meaning, they needed to add an English translation, the word fervent. God wants you. And when something comes to interrupt that union, that connection, that communion, that togetherness with you, God says, no, 5 more minutes, no, whatever. God is willing to feed a whole town with a lunchbox just to extend the time that He gets to spend with you. Jesus knew this was going to be the last time He was going to be with His disciples in the flesh before He's glorified. So He says, I have longed with fervent desire. God's desire is for you. God's heart is set on you. He's got blindfolds, like whatever they're called, to keep Him focused on you. His desire is for you. He's willing to turn the world upside down and to suspend the forces of nature for you. I can't tell you the number of times I knew God was calling me to stay with Him. Not that, I'm doing my part-time reading and journaling, and I only have 3 more minutes, and I have to get up and I have to go, or whatever. And God was telling me, stay, abide. One of Jesus' favorite words of Thursday night before His suffering, abide. Stay with me, abide. Don't get out of my way. Hang around for a bit. 5 more minutes. Let's just finish this episode. Let's just finish this video game. Let's just finish this level. Let's just finish this conversation. That's God saying that to you. It's God saying that to you. It's God saying, God is procrastinating. God is procrastinating your and my necessary departure to the necessary obligations of life. Many times, I want to tell you, I can't count them on one hand. I'll look at my watch, I'll say, only 3 minutes left, and I feel God is telling me, just a little bit more. And I'll get lost, and I'll end up reading 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more chapters. I'll look at my watch, horrified that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be like 20 minutes or half an hour late, or 45 minutes late. I've got a back-to-back stacked date. It's like a domino round. If you're late for the first appointment, you're late for all of them. By the time you get to your last appointment, you're late 2 hours. There's just no point anymore, right? And look back and go, oh my goodness, I'm like 4 chapters ahead of where I was. Oh no, what did I do? And I look at my watch. It's the same time. It's the same time. The God who suspends the sun for Joshua in his battle with the Amalekites suspends the sun for you. I've experienced it. I've experienced it many times. When He tells you stay, just stay. Just stay. Just stay. Let the world burn. Let it burn. Who cares? Who cares? I love moving couples, you know? The most unreliable people on the face of the earth, right? Because they're like on a different time zone, you know? They're kind of just, you know, and power to them. Let them enjoy it. God wants to do that with you. He wants to do that with you. He wants you to be just a little bit irresponsible, just a little bit defiant, just a little bit, you know, just a little bit. And don't worry, and clean up your mess. And clean up your mess for him, for his sake, not for another episode on Netflix, not for another, you know, PS5 game, not for, you know what I mean. You know what I mean, right? For him, because his desire is for you. His desire is for you. He will literally hold the sun still in the sky to extend the time with you. He will literally feed a town with a lunchbox to extend, to just stretch it out a little bit longer with you. So given that, what should my heart's disposition be towards him? Wake up in the morning, something in me says, just pray. Just start with the introduction. Just start with the introduction to praying. Well, come, let us worship. Let us ask Christ our God, come, let us worship. Let's just say everything about worship. Worship snooze. And I snooze. And once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. His desire is for me. He's sitting, he's like ready to pounce. He's ready. Like, if one of the angels would sneeze behind him, he'd fall off the brink of heaven into my bed. You know? I am going to fall, right? For you, for me. Isn't it? If somebody cares that much for you and for me, is it not right? Is it not fitting? Is it not appropriate for me to give back some attention as well? See, it's not about time. People say, oh, I just need to give more time to God. It's actually not about time. It's what it really is attention. And you're not happy. I don't almost all of you person, wonderful people, all of you. Honestly. Great, glorious, beautiful people. Right? We're just kind of over messaged. Where my attention's going in 17 million different places, right? But like, think of like a beautiful candlelit dinner, this romantic date, flowers, candles, most romantic moment in the world, and I'm holding my wife's hands and she's holding mine, and we've spoken about everything we could possibly speak about, so everything has gone quiet, and we're just staring into each other's eyes, and she knows I'm always thinking something, so she says, what are you thinking? And I say, I tell her, chicken or beef. She says, what? I said, I'm flying out tomorrow, and they're going to ask me chicken or beef, and I don't know what I'm going to say, chicken or beef, right? Right? That's the end of that moment, right? That's the end of that moment, right? That's done, right? What killed that? The candles are still lit, the light is still dim, the music is still playing. I'm checked out. My eyes are looking at hers, my hands are here, but my brain is on airplane food tomorrow. Really? Airplane food? Really? Right? So it's about attention. It's about attention. So, you know, how can we gather ourselves? How can we kind of collect ourselves? Like I'm kind of like falling apart on all sides, busting at the seams kind of, and I am distracted almost the entirety of the day with just the minimum amount of attention necessary to do my job like competently and coherently, right? But even then, my brain is in 17 different places. We call it multitasking, but I don't know what it really is. I think it's just distraction. Anyways, to each their own. How can we kind of just gather ourselves before God and give Him the attention that He is right and worthy to receive? And that's why the liturgy, We say meet and right, right and worthy, fitting. It is fitting and right and worthy and becoming that we would praise you, that we would glorify you, that we would worship you, because his desire is for us. See, he's holding your hand at that candlelit dinner, and when you ask him, what are you thinking about? He just smiles. And it's a one-word answer. You. And that's more than enough to keep this smile plastered on my face forever, says the Lord. So how can we reciprocate? One is to have an awareness of this, to have an awareness of the depth of his desire for us, the fervent desire that he has for you and for me. You see, this is why lust is a sin, because if I desired him with that fervent desire, it wouldn't be, right? But it's that my amount, my tank of fervent desire that I have is dispersed between other people, things, etc., rather than him. A topic maybe for another day. How can we collect those things? One, the awareness of his fervent desire for us. Secondly, look, when you come in out of the cold, it takes some time to warm up. It's minus 40 and blowing snow outside, and you come over wearing a Canada Goose coat. You come over to my house, and I say, hey, let me take your coat, your coat for you, and hang it on the hook, and you say, it's just full of frosting, But you're in the house, it's room temperature. Why do you want to take it? Well, because it takes some time. It takes some time to warm up, right? So expect some time to warm up. So the experts in prayer and the experts in spirituality tell us, don't just jump in to prayer right away. Enter your room, close the door, and as you're closing the door, let it be like a physical closing of the door, but also a spiritual closing of the door. I'm closing the door, God and I are inside, and everything else is outside. But it's going to take some time before you evict all of those other thoughts and concerns and worries and ideas, right? So then you need something to fill that time. Some people like to sing a couple of songs. Some people have taken up coloring. Get yourself a coloring book and some coloring pencils, and just color gently, and just chit-chat with God as you're coloring, for 5 minutes. Set a timer on your phone, 5 minutes. 5 minutes of warmth. Some people like to meditate. Some people like to just take a moment of silence. Some people like to pray the Jesus prayer. Some people will pray the canonical hours, like the Aveya, as a warm-up for their prayer. Fine, no problem. But just be aware. Don't be surprised. Don't be upset. Don't be disappointed if you close the door, and you do the sign of the cross, and you stand in your corner in beautiful icons, and your head is still in the dishwasher, and it's still all these thoughts in your head. It will settle down. It will settle down. If you don't engage the thoughts, they will settle down. They will come and they will go. Just give it some time. We used to have coloring books downstairs. You can grab them if you still have some. You can order some on Amazon. You can send us your favorite one if you find one that you like, and we'll order a dozen of them for the rest of the congregation. Right? It's a wonderful little practice. Some people like knitting. Some people like making prayer rules. Doing something is oftentimes easier than just being. So doing something with your hands or whatnot. Not anything electronic or screen related. Just put that all aside. Then just gently start in prayer with the full awareness and cognizance of his presence, that God is present. You may feel him. You may feel the presence with you. You may be aware of the presence with you, or you may not. I tell you the truth, more often than not these days, if you ask me what I feel, I tell you I feel like I'm talking to the wall. But I know I'm not. Right? Sometimes a lot of things we do might feel futile, but we know they're leading towards a very laudable cause, a very laudable goal. Oftentimes we're doing little tasks that seem mundane or seem sort of, inconsequential, but they're not. They add up towards something great. Right? So don't be too much swayed by your feelings. I was just speaking yesterday with psychology professor, wonderful, wonderful young woman, and also a therapist. She was telling me, like, all of the experience in secular therapy, all of the science, and then obviously all of the spirituality the church is teaching us not to weigh too heavily on our feelings. Acknowledge them, don't brush them under the rug, or don't repress them, but they're not always true. They're not always right. We feel things, and sometimes we're wrong. I have intuition. It's just not nearly as good as my wife's, right? I feel things, she feels things. The things she feels tend to be more right than the ones I feel. We've accepted it. Right? So, warm up, and then just start gently. Right? And then the last thing, which I shared with you already, but I'll just share it again now as we're talking about practical steps. There is an interaction with God. Listen for it. And God is often impractical. He's often doesn't respect the laws of nature. He often doesn't respect time and space and so on. Often, right? Allow him to. When he tells you linger, linger. When he tells you pack it up, okay, a little bit of a confession. Sometimes I pray to procrastinate, right? Oftentimes it encourages me and I get over my procrastination and I do what I'm supposed to do. But sometimes I'm just procrastinating. So sometimes God slaps me across the back of the head and says, I don't want you on your knees, I want you on your feet, I want you at your desk, I want you on the phone, I want you whatever, get up off your, So listen. In prayer, in the quiet, there's an interaction. Listen for it. You may not hear it the first day, the second day, the third day, the fifth day, the 10th day. But if you keep listening and tell God, Lord, I wish to hear your voice, you will. Be aware of his fervent love for us. Warm up, start gently, and then follow his lead.